Good afternoon, good morning, good day. It's noon, so I never know if I should say good morning or good afternoon for that. I am Dr. Elena Sherwood, and welcome to my weekly live segment here on YouTube. I come here on Thursdays, Eastern Standard at noon, Eastern Standard, because I am in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. And so here we are. I collect questions throughout the week. If you're watching this on a replay, hang in there. I'm sure there will be something important that might be of help, might be of use to you or someone you know. So a little bit about myself, if this is the first time we are meeting. I was a couples therapist for 35 years. I was a licensed clinical social worker, and I specialized in couples. So I got a lot in my head. The other thing I did is I went and got it. Sometimes you just got to really commit to doing this well. So I have both a master's and a PhD in studying couples as well. And so I have retired my license. I am now a relationship coach and a YouTuber. So this is also content creating, and leaving what I know on this planet is what I also love to do. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. And if you're catching this later and a question pops up for you, feel free to leave it in the comments. I do my best to answer them. I do my best to answer them as soon as I can. Wow, just need a quick drink of water here. Feel free to tell me where I'm finding you today if this is something that you're watching later. I'd love to know where people are. So the first question I'm going to read, and this one came in 24 hours ago. Please talk about relationship tips for first-time parents. If we are looking at especially the newborn baby stage, or, a melding of households, and expect it to be stressful. I think one of the easiest things that couples miss, especially when there's a lot going on and there's some extra tension and extra psychosocial stress, which is just a fancy word for many things that go on in our lives day to day. One of the first things that we forget to do, believe it or not, are two things. We forget how important it is to listen and what listening really means. I'm going to talk about the listening, and the other one is the speaking up. It's easy to say just listen really well and say how you feel. It ain't that easy. It's a lot more complicated. For example, listening means completely looking them in the eye. First of all, eye contact. Super, super important. If you got your phone, if you got a TV on, if you're whatever, look at them, pause the TV, put down the thing, and look them in the eye. Number one tip for listening is look them in the eye. You listen carefully to what is being said, and you listen. So you're listening with your eyes, you're listening with your ears, and you're listening with your brain, as in you are processing what is being said. And you also pay attention with your heart. I'll talk about that part a little bit later. Where many go wrong is they just kind of assume that they are getting the gist of what their partner is trying to say. Something like, for example, you said you were going to make dinner. There's no dinner. Something like that. Okay, maybe that sounds a little bit rude, but however that is delivered. Now, it could be somebody saying, I feel like you have let me down. Maybe, maybe not. It could be somebody saying, I am not doing very well right now and I need you. Maybe, I have many people have let me down before. And so this is what I'm trying to say is there are many things. So when I say listen with your brain, interpret what is being said. When I say listen to your heart, show some interest in what your supposed loved one is trying to convey to you. So that means you also do that by paying close attention and looking at the details that their face might be giving you. Now, okay, this is a lot that I'm trying to tell you about listening, but this is how couples end up hearing a message. And when they don't know and they're not clear in what is being said, this is the thing with your heart and your brain. You ask for clarification. Hello, and thank you from South Carolina. Welcome. You ask for clarification on the things you didn't understand. Now, many people will go and do things like, I didn't fully understand, I got defensive, I'm being accused of being lazy, and kind of shut down. No. So this is what I'm saying. For couples, especially when there's a lot going on, especially when it's like new parents, somebody is exhausted somewhere. Somebody is depleted. You are both. There is no way that your communication, your hearing and listening can be as on par as it was before. And for some, when you are in a new family, this is when you sort of realize perhaps the state of your relationship coming into this that may not have been as strong as you had hoped. Totally normal. This happens a lot. So, yeah, and this is what I'm saying is, so for new parents, pay closer attention to each other. Now, in the speaking up part that I said, because it's twofold, yes, I just went on for the last few minutes about how important, how to actually listen. The speaking up is hard too, because many of us are scared to fully say how we feel, because sometimes we don't get heard in the way that we need. And sometimes we don't say the words we mean to say in the way that we wish will be understood by our partners. And so the hint I have, the tip I have for speaking up, I encourage you to be as honest as possible. Now, maybe you start with saying, I'm not good with words. Here's my best shot. And I'll explain and apologize later if I get it wrong. So stop putting all of this pressure to be the perfect communicator, because the thing about communication is the worst thing you could do is to not do it. And in a healthy relationship, or in a relationship where couples are trying hard, there's all kinds of room for latitude and for forgiveness and for, is that what you meant to say? So that's my biggest tip for, especially with new parents, is pay closer attention to how you speak to each other and in how you listen and tune in to what they need. Thank you for everybody joining in, coming in and out. Hi from India. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for everybody coming to join. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the comments. And thank you for the likes. Here's another question I got. Actually, this one came up in my Facebook. But it's a really good one, and it was a really long one, so I had to kind of shorten it so I could read it, and it applied to all of us. Okay. I keep over-explaining my feelings so my partner understands me. I validate him, but I don't feel emotionally supported back, and our talks turn into arguments. Am I giving too much because I'm treating him the way I want to be treated? Let me start with am I giving too much with treating him the way I want to be treated? It is possible to give too much. I am new, subscribe to your channel. Thank you for the subscription. Thank you for subscribing. Am I giving too much by treating someone the way I want to be treated? All right, first of all, it's good to explain yourself. But sometimes the conversations are two people. If somebody isn't hearing what you're trying to translate or trying to transmit, it's also up to them to say, what do you mean? I don't get it. And so it's two-part. Now, sometimes you can over-explain, but sometimes you got to go back before you even explain and say, are you listening to me? So I'm going to be all over the place on this question. So cut me all kinds of slack because it's a big question. Let me go with the piece that I think is also important here. I'm treating my partner the way I want to be treated. We are very different people because sometimes your partner doesn't want to be treated, doesn't need the things you need. Now, I am a person who likes my feelings validated and likes everything that I transmit heard. For some, they're not like that. And for some, they're not cluing into what is being said. And too much sometimes gets really overwhelming for them. So I'm not blaming anybody here. I'm just saying that in a relationship, it's not as cut and dry as I'm giving you what I would need, but you're different people. And so sometimes what you both need is actual clarity. Because sometimes a conversation is happening and neither are listening. Number one, you should never give too much of yourself to the point that you are empty and you are resentful and you are angry and you are just sort of feeling like, what am I even doing this for? If you don't feel like you're getting through, maybe it's time to try something different. And maybe it's time to just call it and say, I don't know what you need from me. Tell me. That could be more powerful than anything because we can accept that people need what we need, but sometimes they don't. And sometimes if your partner is going through something and you want to give them what you would want to receive, that might not be the best tactic. Tactic is the wrong word, makes it sound like this is some kind of the best approach when somebody is in need of something is you ask them. You ask them what they need from you. You ask what you could do to help. That's the first thing that I would say to people who are having communication issues with, I'm trying to help you and you're not letting me. Sometimes people don't want your help. Sometimes, yes, they want validation and a listening ear, but sometimes they just want for you to say, how can I help you? What can I do that will be helpful to you? Absolutely correct. Thank you. Couples relationships are really tough, and it should be as easy as I know you need something and I want to give you the things that I usually need in the manner that I like to receive them. But sometimes, sometimes our needs become, sometimes we're not giving anymore. Sometimes it's kind of like we're almost taking without knowing we're taking, because sometimes we do things and we want them to fully appreciate the way we would appreciate, and they're not. So it's frustrating. But sometimes we're completely missing the boat. And sometimes it's your partner who's having an awful time trying to let you know what they need. And so back to the first thing I said when I started this live, pay closer attention. Pay closer attention with the listening. Understanding is very important for couples' goals, absolutely. And you would be surprised how little couples understand each other sometimes. And you might say something and the other one didn't hear it at all. Or maybe you did say something and the other one chose to ignore it or avoid it or dismiss it. It's important to figure out what really happened there. Like, I just said something. Did you hear what I said? Did you catch my words? Did you hear? And whatever it is, because sometimes they really didn't hear. Sometimes they didn't, they're choosing to ignore it. Okay, that's something else. And if you're with someone who always ignores and doesn't give a flying about your feelings and your perspective, that's something completely different. And if that is the case, then maybe we are looking at something with deeper issues. And I strongly suggest you watch my video on hard marriage versus emotional abuse. Now, this is the thing, emotional abuse, which is something I'm covering a lot in my channel, there is so much gray area there. And I'm really trying to give you something to help you not label things, all kinds of things, but simply to understand what you are in, to look at patterns more than labels, to get an idea of what is yours to control and what is not, and what areas you do have control over and what you can do. That's the thing I do here. That's what I'm trying very hard to do. All right, let me see if I have any more questions. If you have any questions here, at the replay, or if you just come to join, feel free to leave it in the comments. Women is more feeling, the men is correct or okay. I think the question is women is more feeling than men is correct or not. I've seen both. I think many women are just a lot more expressive, but I don't like to polarize too much. I do know that when it comes to relationships, I have seen situations where it is actually the men who has a lot of these deep feelings that are being ignored by women. I mean, my content is, I word it a lot for women because it's women who usually come to me, but much of what I talk about here is for everybody. I have seen both. I have seen women who are just so tired of trying to be heard. I have seen the same with men, where they may not look the same, but they've kind of emotionally shut down because it was just too much for them, and they can't seem to process what is being said, and they are just overwhelmed, and the confusion is there, and so they just shut down. And so the perspective I come with is I have worked with men closely. I was a military social worker, civilian, in an airbase for several years. And so I also worked very closely with business owners, primarily men in the community that I lived in. And so I do my best to present what I'm trying very hard to show women what is healthy and what is not. And I do not many people think that because my content is addressed to women that I demonize men. I do not. If I did that, then I would be the hypocrite, because I married a very, very good man, and I know several in my circle who are excellent men, and I have raised 2 of them. And so what is that? That's just a little tangent that I've gone on there. So anyway, I'm dealing with defensiveness, and it's huge stumbling block. It is a huge stumbling block. It never ends, and I'm exhausted from it. Speaking of my husband. This is such an excellent comment. And I want to ask, how long have you been together? I want to ask, how long has this been an issue? I want to ask, has there been talk about divorce? I want to ask if you've had counseling of any kind. I want to ask, my husband is a good man, but he has his demons. I still can't be with him enough. I still can't be with him, even though he is a great man. Okay, another excellent comment. What I'm hearing here is a lot of the frustration that many women do have, and I get it. I have sat with men in my office where they are puddles. They are just in tears and frustrated because they don't get why their wives are so angry at them and are so frustrated all the time. And, and I've actually sat down and I've said, sometimes she just wants you to hear. And I've also had the opposite, where couples have come in and it's a husband and a wife. And I could see, and I've had to say to her, I think he stopped listening when you started kind of coming at him from too many angles here. I get the feeling he really does want to hear you. But maybe the conversation just needs to be slowed down again, not because he's incapable, but because it is so much, and that many people are just overstimulated in general and don't know what to do with feelings. Okay, here's a comment. 14 years together, married 8, have considered divorce, second marriage. Okay. The thing about, I want to speak on defensiveness because I'm trying to give you as many little pockets of information as I can. Sometimes the defensiveness comes because they might be feeling attacked. And maybe you, I'm quite certain you are not attacking. However, what if there is any kind of pressure in your voice, they might misinterpret that. And what I sometimes there is such a thing as timing too. I know that I learned this the painful way is that the worst possible time to ever talk to my husband at all is in those 10 minutes before he goes into work, because he takes on this persona and he's suddenly, and even during lunch hour when he's at work, I don't like who he is. I won't go out with him for lunch if he's going back to work, because he has this other personality and this other way that he becomes kind of himself. He's a very, very good man, but he is also someone who has to survive in a jungle full of men. And so this is just something that he embodies. So I'm saying sometimes it's that. All right, let me just see other comments here. I know I'm all over the place because honestly, there's so much to be said here. Okay, I got that. Have tried counseling. He said it was too expensive and didn't work in his first marriage. I know why he's divorced. I'm nearly there too. Let's tell it like it is. Counseling, therapy is expensive. Yes. I think what people, and a lot of the times it will not feel like it's worth the money. Sorry, it will not feel like it's worth the money if you expect things to turn around in one session. And if you come into it and your heart and your mind, or you're not really fully open. And sometimes it's also that your therapist, your counselor is fairly new in the field, or, I mean, let's face it, not all therapists, like all professionals, they're not all equal. So, I get that. What I do look for in relationships, and what I urge people to look for, are before we start thinking divorce. I have a video on that. It's called Before You Leave, Do These 5 Things. I think the thumbnails is Stay or Go, because I want for people to be really thorough as you can be before you leave a relationship. And especially when we're talking marriage, this is, it's a whole nother level of commitment than just living together, or, because you're with this person for a very good reason. So I really urge people to look at a lot of these questions before you go. What are those questions? Can I pull them out of my head right now? I think one is, yes, these are reasons I don't like the way he is, but what parts of him, and I know they are there because I still see them, what parts of him make him the man I married? Before I leave, I want to know if I am willing to accept losing those parts. And is the love really gone? My love for him. And is there even a way that there is some change that is happening? If you see that he's trying, and really trying, not like I tried, okay, it didn't work. If you see some effort, and if you see even tiny little progress that seems to come from a meaningful place, that's not nothing. I have seen that video. Oh, I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you. Every situation is different, right? And let's all of us come with our own stories that color the way we see relationships, the way we see our partners. All of us do. And so we never quite know what part is at play, whether it's some of our own kind of, somebody use the word demons here. And, if we're to be really honest, all of us have things that trip us up, some kind of inner thing that makes us overprotective, that makes us a little defensive sometimes, that makes us want to make sure we are safe. And we have to remember that in all relationships. And so I think one of the things that really helps me is when we are arguing, I do my very, very best to kind of sit back on my own and think about, okay, what just happened there? What could I have done just a tiny little bit differently? If I come at him and say, let me tell you everything you did wrong and everything about you that you think you should fix, that changes the dynamic. You would not love that if your husband came at you saying, let me tell you everything that's wrong with you and everything that you should fix. Because these are things we do in marriages, in relationships. We don't even know we're doing them. Sometimes we forget that we are not their life coach, their therapist, their everything. That sometimes we are just there to be with them and love them for who they are. I mean, that changes if they're hurting us repeatedly in emotionally abusive ways and all of that. But that's, because we're all humans. And I love it because I saw a comment somewhere in one of my videos saying, I've learned now that there was nothing really wrong. We were just two people who've had a lot of hurt in our lives, trying very hard to reach each other. Yeah. So on that note, I don't know if I've gone on tangents or not, but this is the beauty of live, because sometimes I can go there when I please, when it rhymes. Yes, I have done that way too much, trying to guide him into smart choices. I am not doing that anymore. I see my toxic behavior. My wish for you is to see yourself with kindness. There's nothing wrong with wishing and trying to help and trying to guide. Let's not label that a bad thing. That's just a sign of how caring and giving and how willing you are to be there for your husband or your partner. And so I would love for you to simply say, this is the season for me doing things differently. This is the season of not just giving, but also keeping in mind what is and isn't mine. You can still love someone deeply and not guide them and not try to fix things and not help them make smarter choices. In a way, yes, it's good for you to bring a few things up and to mention it and leave it with take it or leave it. These are my thoughts. One of the things my husband has learned to do, because sometimes I am not the most receptive, is he will ask me, would you like to know what I think? Before he launches into what he can see that I can't. And sometimes I will come out and say, not right now, thank you. And so sometimes there's a little bit of softness that can come into this, and you could still be kind and loving with the respect offered first before you launch into the things that you see. And let's face it, sometimes as observing our husbands, partners, we see things that they can't. That's just how it is. And it's okay that you know a lot more, and they may not want to know what you know. And they may not be willing, but maybe they do. But so respect and just ask to say before you would you like to hear what I think? It's up to you. Here we go. Great advice. That helps. Thank you. All right. If there are I don't have any other questions that have popped up. If you have any here, do. And thank you for all the hearts. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, that was an excellent time. I do my dangdest to give you clarity without buzzwords and without quick whatever. I do my best to give you big pictures of everything where I can. So thank you for listening here. Thank you for visiting with me. And I appreciate that you have given me, I am honored that you have given me some very vulnerable questions and spent some precious time here today. I will see you in that case. Just wrap it up here. I will see you again this time next week, Thursday, 12 noon Eastern Standard. Again, thank you.